Welcome back. At the New Year seminar on February 7th, our presenter was Les Thorne from No Turning Back in the UK. Throughout the day, Les showcased 3 projects. In this second video, Les creates a beaded bowl.
Now what people say to me is they say, well, if you weren't doing it in front of an audience, Les, how long would it take you to make? And then I do some sort of demonstrator's BS, don't I? So about 3 minutes. Okay, I don't. I think that's, to be finished completely, it's probably an hour and a quarter's work. Okay, I have a nice piece of wood, sanded inside and out, turned 3 to 4 mil thick all the way through, everything like that. It's probably about an hour and a quarter's work there to do it properly. Okay, so that would be about it. Okay? Because I would be 30% harder with most of the cuts because I'd be pushing the wood off as we're working. Okay, so that's our piece here. I will hand it round. Okay, if everybody gives it a bit of a stroke on the way round, it'll be smooth by the time it gets round to the end. And you've all got to be nice to me and say, it looks perfect there, even though the thing was too short. And once again, I'm not fishing the compliment, and I guarantee that will not conform. Okay, I'll send a picture of it to Martin Saber Smith, who'll tell me whether it conforms to some rule or some mathematical formula or something like that. Right then. How long have we got? 15 minutes. Oh. Now, of course, in this part of the world, you all know Glenn Lucas, don't you? And I have to speak about Glenn, because Glenn's the most efficient wood turner I've ever seen in my life. Okay? Hey? Camera's gone off. Yeah, so Glenn's the most efficient wood turner, the most efficient bowl turner I know. Glenn's really easy to wind up, though. Okay? Because one of the things that spindle turners say is spindle turners like me can turn bowls, but bowl turners can't turn spindles. And as soon as I say that, he's always like, look at this spindle I've turned. Because he's a good turner, but it's that standard thing. And the reason for that is because spindle turning crosses over into bowl turning directly. Because spindle turning generally is a non-scraping technique. You know, I very rarely scrape a spindle. I scraped inside that, but I wouldn't scrape the outside of it because it's a poor way of removing wood. Okay? Bowl turning is turned more into a scraping hobby, I think, than it should do. So what I'm going to do, how this demo next thing is basically, it's called How Spindle Turners Turn Bowls. So I'm going to turn a bowl, I'm going to add things into it that come with spindle turning, but I'm going to talk about the crossover between spindle turning and bowl turning. And no, I'm not going to use a spindle roughing gouge on it, and no, I'm not going to use a skew on it. Okay? Because that will once again be stupid. But it's that crossover between the two. And you know, I turn bowls, and I probably turn bowls, a lot more bowls than a lot of you guys do, but I'm not a bowl turner. A big batch of bowls for me would be 20. Okay? I do turn bowls decoratively. Okay? Because I actually quite like turning bowls, and I've got a lot of really nice wood, so I tend to turn bowls for fun. Okay? But this is basically how spindle turners turn bowls. So we have that crossover between it. And we're going to use a spindle gouge on a bowl, don't get me wrong, we will use a spindle gouge, but not a spindle roughing gouge. So, screw chuck on there like this. I think it's some fun. I always get funny looks at security at airports when you have lumps of wood wrapped in cling film in your hand luggage. I think that's really quite amusing. You know, I mean, to me, it's a perfectly normal thing for anybody to do, isn't it, really? Here we go. Now, the reason this is wrapped in cling film is because this isn't freshly cut, but it's only been down, it's winter cut, so it's been down about 3 months. So it's a piece of English ash. Okay, you've already got ash dye back here, haven't you? Yeah. They're good. I don't want to be blamed for destroying all the ash trees in it. Let's see, this tree never had it. Okay, so then what we're going to do, we're going to put this on the lathe with the screw shark like this. Okay, someone once said to me that's dangerous. And I said, why? He said, what happens if you don't let go? You've got to be, well, you're bloody stupid then, aren't you? I mean, why would you try and hold on to it? It's actually, as long as you've got variable speed, it's actually quite safe. It's a reasonably safe thing to do. What it does is it cuts a really good thread on the screw chuck, so it does hold it on there quite well. But yeah, don't try and not let it go, because that would just be stupid. Now, first things first, when we do a bowl now, there seems to be, for some reason, this massive habit now of putting your tailstock in when you're turning a bowl, which I'm sure a lot of you do. Okay? Why would you put your tailstock in?
Safety.
Why?
Goes off.
So it goes off. So what you're saying then is, you're not quite sure what you're holding it on with. So you need to put a tailstock in. I would say, hold on to it better. Okay? And that's the way I look. My risk assessment, and the reason for this is because if I put the tailstock in, I'm limiting myself to some of the techniques I can use. Okay? I can't get the handle around here and make a push cut around there. Now I might need to do that. This might be a bit of git wood. You know what git wood is, don't you? Wood that you can't get a finisher off at all. It might be a real problem. So I'm limiting myself. Now, if you're happy doing that and you feel safe doing that, that's brilliant. I'm not going to say, I don't want you to wear the piece of wood and go, Les told me it didn't matter. Okay? One thing I would do is, if I'm doing that, is I would use a ring here rather than a point. Because if I use a point, I'm going to disappear into the wood and actually waste some of the wood in there as I'm doing it. So basically, I don't put the tailstock in unless the bearings are bouncing. For that reason. So first things first, spindle turners turn bowls. Now, you notice, don't you, that this is a series, apart from that bit there, this is cut off in a series of flats. Okay? Because that's a spindle turner, what I don't want to do is ruin my bandsaw by cutting circles. So straight away I cut flats off it. Okay, because I don't want to ruin my blade. If you cut circles on a bandsaw blade, because the outside's going quicker than the inside of the blade, it tends to wear one side more than the other, and you'll find it won't cut circles. So that's one thing, Jerry. On a blade this size, actually I would just take it into an octagon. I just take the corners off. Okay, I wouldn't bother making it round. Because my leg's big enough and strong enough that I can just wind the speed up and take it off at one go. So what we're going to do, we're going to true this blank up, because this might be a trophy base. You know, to me, a bowl is a trophy base with a hole in it. Okay? Because I've turned more trophy bases, and I'll say probably more bowls actually, but yeah. So we're going to go on there, and first thing I need to find the right tool. So we can take that one off, that one, that one, that one, that one. I need the I don't need the spindle up and down, so we can pop that one off there. And I can put my bowl gouge in the handle. Now I use wooden handles most of the time because I'm a wood turner. I don't get these metal handles, you know, so much. I have a few in my demo kit, but durably in the workshop. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to true this blank up. Now I see a lot of people, once again, truing things up badly. Okay? Now, my risk assessment says to me, this piece of wood could be dangerous. Okay? And it could be dangerous because I don't know what's inside it. I can't see if there's any cracks, anything obvious. Okay? But I don't know. We've all turned bits of wood where we've started and go, oh God, we didn't expect that in there. Okay? So straight away, what I don't want to do is stand in front of it. Okay? I saw a demonstrator once, classic this was years ago. He went, always stand to the side when you turn the lathe on. Yeah? From practice he went like this, and always stand to the side, and then he went, which I thought was a bit strange. So I'm going to try and stand to the side. Now imagine if, when I stand to the side, it puts me in the best place to make the best cut. Suddenly, the wood turning gods are smiling on me. Normally they're not. Normally they tell me, as you get to that perfect cut, it's just about to go wrong. But imagine that. So if I was here and I made this cut here, imagine the best cut that I can make puts me in the safest position to screw the main up. You see, there's no pressure on that. And I know that tool's in the right place because, once again, if I go to silly slow speed, okay, this tool will still make this cut. Okay, now a lot of you will do this. Doesn't work at this. People are going, yeah, that's me. It doesn't work at a slow speed. Now, if I speed the wood up, speed's then going to... It's come out true anyway. So that's such a bad cut, knocked out true. And that's because the speed is not being your friend now. With the lathe going that slow, it's going to find out all your little bits of lax of technique because you haven't got that pressure of it coming off as you're doing it. Okay? So if I do a bad technique with it going fast, look, it takes wood off, but it's not the best way. The best way is there. I've got the bevel in contact. I can run through the wood. Oh, sun's come out again. And we can just work that off. And that's pretty much a planing cut with a skew. Okay? So that's a planing cut with a skew, and even across the end grain it's going to give you a pretty good finish. But you saw there was no pressure, there was no histrionics. I'm not fighting the wood. You know, for you guys, most of you, it's your hobby, isn't it? Don't fight it. Okay? Just should be enjoyable. You know, I think it can be. Just easy. So what we're going to do now, we've done our diameter. We fixed one size of our bowl. Okay? Well, now we'll start putting our shape on. But when we put our shape on, what we're going to do, we're going to have a little bit of a play. And we're going to talk now about pulling and pushing. Okay? Because to simplify it, there are two ways I can turn this bowl. I can push cut, I can pull cut. Now, interestingly enough, pull cutting is not a spindle turning technique. It's not a technique you would use a lot in spindle turning. Okay? Because generally a pull cut and spindle turning would be uphill. And we never cut uphill, we always cut downhill with the grain. But in bowl turning we can do that because now we have the wood going on our different aim. So to differentiate through, we're going to put the very simplified version. Do you have Ladybird books in Ireland? You did, didn't you? The Ladybird version of cutting. Okay? Here's a push cut. Here's a pull cut. Now straight away what's interesting, it uses the same part of the tool. I'm using that lower left edge, push cut, same on a pull cut. Now, a push cut, my bevel's in contact. A pull cut, my bevel's not in contact-ish. Okay? Now, from my point of view, what I want you to think about is I want you to think about where's my body position. In a push cut, I'm behind the cutting edge. There's the cutting edge, it's cutting, and I'm following it. With a pull cut, I'm in front of the cutting edge, and I'm leading it. Okay?
Sorry, we can't see out in this way.
Sorry? Is this on standby? Has it gone into, it's been on for too long? You want a mirror? Yeah. Just press the, can somebody press the button? I thought somebody had called the scouts in to fix the TV then. What I find is if you press every button, one of them might work.
That's asking.
Have you got a remote control for that? His hair won't stick up very much because he hasn't got much. Right. I will carry on because it's... So basically that idea of, with the pull cut, I'm leading the cutting edge with the push cut behind. Now the problem about most people, most professionals, is they sort of do a push me pull. They do this, they do pull into a push. We'll talk about that a bit later. So what's the benefits of both? Okay, and if you ever get the chance when you're in the States to watch Stuart Batty versus Mike Mahoney when they do the Battle of the Bowls, okay, because Stuart Batty is a production spindle turner, apprentice trained, is a push cutter. Mike Mahoney is a pull cutter. Okay, and they turn basically the same bowl at about the same speed using two different techniques. And they'll say one's better than the other, one's not better than the other. Pull cutting, push cutting, I think is more difficult to learn, therefore a better cut. Okay. We teach pull cutting at the wood turning school. Our first line of attack is always a pull, because it's easier to get the people to remove the wood like this. It's always a pull on the outside. Unless they're left-handed, and then you can do this one. The only thing about this one is it's 5 shavings everywhere. Okay, and you always got to learn to control your shaving. So I'm just working that line. As soon as I make a series of steps, okay, I make a series of steps because that's all stop cutting there. I come back and take a little bit less, take a little bit less, and as I get to a bigger diameter, I just decrease the size of the cut. Is it working, yeah? I mean, we're pretty much, yeah? No? Ooh. Right, does anybody have any questions before I do the next bit? Because everyone's only getting half the experience. No? Right, so what we're going to do is I'm just going to talk very quickly about marking out and stuff like this, about spigots and recesses. This is that point when I've got to work, when I'm working about whether I'm going to use a spigot, as in a sticky out bit, or a recess, as in a sticky in bit, to hold my bowl. So whether I'm going to work in contraction or expansion to hold this. Now, I could talk about this, that and the other. The one thing you've got to get out of your head is one's stronger than the other. I personally think that's BS. Okay? You know, a well-turned recess will be stronger than a poorly turned spigot. Okay? Now, the reason I would use a spigot most of the time, as in a sticky out bit, is once again a bit like using that tiny little spigot on the bottom of that urn. It's about what I'm going to do with it afterwards, about usability. If I use a spigot, I can turn a beautiful curve and stick my spigot on there and hold the bowl. If I use a recess, I can turn a beautiful curve and then I'm going to stick a hole in it. As soon as I stick a hole in it, that hole becomes part of the design. It's not stuck onto the design, it's inside the design. So now it becomes part of it. So I would use a recess quite happily on a platter. If I'm turning a big wide platter, I will use a wide, big recess and use like that. But on a bowl, it's pretty much always a spigot because it gives me it sticks on the outside of the shape. So then that spigot then becomes something I can work with. I can make it into a stand. I can take it off completely, but it gives me the versatility. If I've got a hole in the bottom, I've pretty much always got a hole in the bottom. I mean, I can titillate it up, I can put some decoration on it, but it's basically a hole. Recesses came from the days when we used to have to use collet chucks. Okay? Those of you who've been turning a long time will remember the Craft Supplies chuck and the multi-star chuck, and they had very little movement in expansion, but very accurate. And that's why we use recesses, because they held better in expansion than they did on compression. Still no? It's on, okay. Right, so I'm just going to mark this, okay, just before we have lunch. So, in effect, little thing about marking my spigot. I'm going to use the left-hand point of a pair of dividers. I'm going to make a mark with the left-hand point to make sure it lines up with the right-hand point, and that's my spigot. And now it's lunchtime. Perfect. It looks good. I get the biggest portion.
Okay, just before anybody moves, there's tables down in the back. Most of them have benches. When you move, we'll be putting up more tables, so you need to bring chairs with you. If you queue up from that direction to the top of the table that's serving there, you pick up your plate first, then your food, then your salads, then your bread, and then your knives and forks.
Blimey.
As I say,
That was a lot of instruction, wasn't it?
yeah. Oh yes.
He told me he got that hurling stick and he wrestled most of the team for it and got it off them. Do we believe him? Are we starting again? It's time. Let's get this show on the road. I limbered myself up.
Was the food as good or worse or better?
Oh, that's a leading. Have they gone? Have they gone? Because they look quite, you know, gone upset. They've gone. Say what you like, guys.
Can't hear you, sorry.
Worse.
Not quite as good.
Not quite as good.
It's the best food I've had here. The chicken was tough. Not for me, it was for him.
The rabbit things are going to be also there.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, so
Well done, guys.
we have first prize of the rabbit, we have a free salad. Second prize, we have a free May seminar here, that's Thomas Thomas's. And third prize, we have a free barbecue here in July. And then there's a vast array of amazing prizes on display down there. One of the people here today, Eddie, has donated 5 pots of honey. And there's also 7 honey down there. Eddie,
Don't call me honey.
Okay, so after first, second, and third, it will be just go down and pick what you want. Okay? They're all fantastic prices. Take my word for that. Okay?
The first prize is a seminar, the national seminar.
Saturday, 7.
Oh, Saturday. Is that good, the food?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good gig, that.
Those are amazing, right?
Yeah, great prizes, great prizes. So still a few tickets left, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's still a few tickets left, so come on, buy those tickets. And any money you got left, you can buy some tools off me. Right, hello everybody. Hello. How you doing? Now this is the interesting thing, because this is the afternoon shift. So when you do a national seminar, what you never want to do is you never want to do the shift straight after lunch. Okay? Because it's the one you're all going to fall asleep.
Make it count.
Now, you'll be very, very careful about falling asleep in one of my demos. That's all I'm going to say. Just to warn you. Right. So thank you for anybody who's bought some tools. It does make my suitcase a bit lighter on the way home. I did smuggle them in as well, which was quite fun. Oh yeah, okay. So they're all samples. That's why I could discount them. So let's get back to our bowl journey. I thought I had a lovely lunch today, sat there and talked about, like we did about the Grand Canyon for some reason. So quite how we got onto that. Right, so we're going to go back into this. So this is how spindle turners turn bowl. So you notice that when I'm turning from a small diameter to a big diameter. Why? Because that's with the grain. Okay? Now working with the grain wherever possible is important. There's even a saying, going against the grain, going with the grain. It is an important thing. So if you see somebody turning from this, the big diameter, to the small diameter, when the grain is running in this direction like this piece, they are working the wrong way. Now, if they're working the wrong way for a reason, okay, that's fine. The trouble is, there isn't really a reason for doing it. Okay, so if you work that way like that, you are working, generally, the only time that I would do that for the better effect, maybe on a burr. Okay, so if I've got a piece of burl or anything like that on there, I would, if I couldn't get the finish going the way I'd want to go, I might try the other way to see what happens. Okay? But generally, wet ash like this is actually quite a good indicator of what you can do. So what we're going to do, we're going to do a cut with the grain. So this is a cut with the grain. It's a very easy cut. It's not big. I'm not showing off. I'm not trying to make great big shavings, stuff like that. Okay, so we can see now that I've got a pretty good, perfect finish straight off the tool there. If I work this bit against the grain, straight away you can hear a different sound, can't you? This one is hissing, this one is rubbing. If I work against the grain, I mean that's just bouncing on the screw chuck a little bit. And you can now see, I don't know if you can see it on the thing, this is now torn out. So this is nice and smooth, this is now torn out because I'm working against the grain. So I'm working, so how do we sort of justify that, or how do we get that in our head? Well, let's use the pencil. Okay? My flute position indicator now becomes a grain direction indicator. The pencil is the perfect example of grain direction. Okay, so this wood, oh, go on the top. This wood is running in this way. Okay, so this tree grew like that. Everybody understand that? Okay, you sharpen a pencil downhill. You turn your bowl downhill. Simple, isn't it, really? Easy to remember. Now, of course, if you're doing a weird shape, wrong thing to say. If you're doing a fussy shape, there may be a time where actually you might need to work against the grain to be able to get the tool in there. Okay, so that's a reason for doing it. So basically what I'm saying is you work from there to there as your go-to default position. You only ever work the other way if you can't work, I'm going to put those little bunny ears, inverted commas, the right way. Okay. Now I'm getting a little bit of a bounce off this because this is just on the limit for a screw chuck really, because these jaws are too small. If I had the bigger jaws on, I'm getting a little bit of a sideways movement on that, so you just have to bear with me. So I've marked my spigot. I'm now going to cut away with this. There. And I'm always trying to work in a series of steps. Whenever I'm working, I'm trying to work in a series of steps, just like I would be if I was doing spindle work, because that's what I do. Let's cut loose in the chuck. You gave me a dodgy chuck.
You should have held on to it longer.
Yeah, I should have done. Good answer. Right, I'm looking for a chucky now. I did break my glasses as well, so you have to bear with me, and I'm going to fall into bits today. So, the screw chuck's come loose in there. Okay. Hopefully that's going to stay on there now. Not a good advert for the one-way screw chuck, is it? Okay. So all I'm doing at the moment is trying to remove the wood that I don't want. You can see which way it seems to cut better. It seems to cut better that way. So I'm generally a push cutter because this to me is a bead. Exactly the same way that I would turn a bead. I've got the bevel in contact. I'm flowing the tool round. I'm not fighting it. Because my bevel is in contact, I can remove my left hand. My left hand is doing nothing during this cut. And then I can flow the cut round. There's my bevel. And I can work round. So that's one reason why I prefer the push cut. The other reason I prefer the push cut is I don't have to move the tool rest as much. Okay? Now think about a pull cut is, a pull cut has no beveling contact, or if it does, it has a tiny bit of beveling contact. And because of that, the tool rest and you are now in control of that tool. You don't have that bevel helping you. So if you're doing a pull cut round here, so here's my pull cut, so now I've got to get in front of the cut as I come round, here's my pull cut, there. If I try and go around there, this could happen. Okay? And I have a dig in. To make that cut there, I have to have a tool rest there. So you need a curved tool rest, ideal. So now I can make that same cut, and now it works. Okay? Because the tool rest is there for the support. So that's what you've got to remember with a pull cut. With a pull cut, you need that tool rest close. If you're a pull cutter, a curved tool rest is a massive advantage, because it saves having to move the thing around. Now with a pull cut, with a push cut, if I make a cut here, I can also make a cut up here. I can even pull the tool rest back there if I wanted to and make a cut there. Because now the bevel is giving me the control of the cut. I'm not relying so much on the support from the tool rest or the support from my body. Okay, so I find that an advantage, because that's important when you're doing spindles, because obviously sometimes you're working further off the tool rest. Okay, so I'm going to flow this cut round. If I feel like I'm taking too much, I just give it a little wiggle, and I take less. If I feel like I'm taking too much, I can then take a step, and then I can come back and remove that cut through there. And then we can work all the way round until we turn the bowl. And bowls don't take very long to shape. You know, if I was turning a piece between centres, you'd expect me to do it quite quickly to turn a bead. I turn the bowl quite quickly. Okay? It's just a matter of picking the cut up and going around like that. Because if I turn that way round, it then just becomes a bead, doesn't it? Do you get that? You know, the frame running in this direction, it now just becomes a ball or a bead on a big newel post or something like that. So there's our bowl turned. Okay, we've got a half decent finish. There's a couple of little grooves there where I mucked about. But if that was a drawing where I had that digging on purpose, there's a bit taken out there. But basically, I've now got a bowl to sand. I'm straight onto a piece of 240 grit. 180 grit at the worst. Okay? So that's it. That's as simple as bowl. Now, I've not picked up a scraper. I've not done a shear scraper. I've not done all these fancy cuts that you see on the telly. Okay, all I've done is I've stuck a tool rest and made a shape. Okay, but that's quite difficult to do. That takes the right amount of lift, the right amount of body movement, the right amount of muscle memory, I would say the right amount of experience. Okay, to do that. So of course you might need to do a shear cut and stuff like that. Right, so I'm just going to come in there and I'm going to create a spigot. Okay, just need to go onto the spindle gouge. So there's our spigot. And I'm going to put a flap there. Now that flat is just like that shoulder on my spigot when I do end grain, stuff like that. That's my demonstrator's flat. If you're a beginner, that's your beginner's flat. Because what that gives you the ability to do is when you're inside this bowl trying to knock it off, because that's what you're trying to do when you're hollowing it, aren't you? You're trying to knock the bowl off. Okay? That's keeping it on there. So that flat sat on top of the jaws is stopping the sideways movement, and the sideways movement is what's going to break that foot off. It's that as you go through. So we're going to do one more pass around there to clean up that surface. So now if I was turning this piece of wood and there was a bit of git wood, You know, that wood that's not very nice, but worth persevering with because it was pretty. I might now go to a smaller gouge. Remember when we did across the end grain earlier on, how going to the smaller gouge upped the percentage, upped the quality of finish. We can do the same thing here. So we're going to go to a 1/4 inch bowl gouge. Okay? I'm going to put in a smaller handle. Okay, so I can get around. My glasses are rubbish, of course. Okay, where's the endy bit? There's an endy bit. I want that in there. So the 1/4 inch bowl gouge is the ultimate push cutting tool. Now, the 1/4 inch bowl gouge is a rubbish tool to have a long grinder to do a pull cut on. Why is it no good for doing a pull cut with? Shout it out. Not the edge. No, it's too much edge. What happens is, if I grind this on the same setting as my other one, I end up with the same length of grind. Okay? I then make the same cut, but the flute can't handle it. You make a pull cut, it keeps clogging up. The flute's not big enough to be able to cope with the shaving you can make with it. So I sharpen these a bit more traditional. You can sharpen them straight across. Because I G-sharpen them, I actually keep them. And you'll see once again, look at that nose angle. That's about as far away as you can get from most bowl gouges as possible. This is more like a strong spindle gouge. This is a 35-degree angle on the end, 35 to 40. This now is going to give me that, what's the word again? You've forgotten. I invented a word, sliceability. It's going to give me that slice through the fibres as we go through. So here we go. So you see now I've slowed the cut down. I've slowed the cut down. This is the money shot, this is the cut that everybody's going to see-ish. I'm working it around them. Because the shape is pretty good, I'm trying to keep a consistent cut through there. You've got to concentrate, you can't talk during this, so I am concentrating. I'm looking at the shape up here as it's appearing, and I'm running that through. Now as the end grain comes to the surface at more right angles as it is here, I get a slightly different cut, and that's round. And that's what you're aiming to do. You're aiming to do one complete sweep all the way around, because that's how I would turn a bead if I was doing spindle work. It's exactly the same. To me, there is no difference between bowl turning and spindle turning. And once again, an absolute, it's a very nice piece of wood this, it's making me look much better than I really am. Don't tell anybody. Okay? But it's actually, it's a perfect finish. And that is always my go-to thing. If I don't get it finished using that technique, then I'm a bit stumped. Okay? But then I might try a shear cut, I might try something else at that reason, but generally that is going to give me 9 times out of 10, 29 times out of 30, that's going to give me that perfect finish, bang, straight off the tool, ready for sanding. I'm not going to faff about. Pardon?
You've not done the spread.
No, because I don't use them. No, I'm so good I don't need to. Right. Remember what I was joking there. Remember what I said earlier on, how I see bowl turning as a crossover from spindle turning. If I was turning a newel post, so I had a staircase newel post between centres, and I was putting all the coves and things like that, would you expect me to do the bead with a scraper? No. So why, in my head, why would I do this bead and scrape it? No, because if I was doing a big newel post, I still wouldn't scrape it. Do you see what I mean? But that's the thing, that's the crossover. For me, spindle turning is a direct crossover into bowl turning. If you use a scraper and you get great results, that's absolutely fine. I'm not telling you that you shouldn't do what you're doing. That's stupid. When I go fishing in my hobby, I do what I want to do, and nobody tells me how to do my hobby. As long as it's legal-ish. I was going to say, as long as it's moral. as long as it's not immoral-ish, but no, but basically, if you're not breaking any laws and you're having fun and you're not at risk of hurting yourself, that's the other thing. So remember, if you are a scraper, remember scraping is a poor way of removing material. Scraping is a fine finishing technique. Okay? Scrapers are not very good at removing lots of material. Ish. There's some caveats to that nowadays in production work, like I'll use a negative rate scraper sometimes on side grain, but generally on this, it's a bead. My head says it's exactly the same as me doing it as a bead, therefore I'm going to turn it as a bead. Okay. Right, so we've got all that on there, and now what we're going to do that little sort of affectation show-off cut. Now this is the continuous bead cut. Now you've seen this before, a lot of you, haven't you? You've seen this thing, this cut, yeah? With a continuous bead. So I haven't got to do it then. You don't want me to do it? Why do you want me to do it?
Yeah, we have it all right.
The last time I saw someone doing that,
Go on.
we asked him could he do it on the inside as well, and he did.
Well, that's not what I'm going to do, because that'll ruin the inside part of the demo. Robert O'Connor? It was Robert. Right, so basically, yes, we could do it. So we're going to do it, so this is for the people who haven't seen this yet. Now I do it in 2 stages. Okay? I do a marking out cut and then I do a finishing cut. So we'll show you this. Now if you've not seen it before, I look very clever, but it's not. It's actually not that difficult. It's not a very good shape, this actually. I'm actually going to change that shape, because that shape is not nice for the inside. So I'm actually going to, it's a little bit flat at the top. I'm actually going to come in here and just take a little bit off there. Now this continuous bead cut that you're going to see in a minute, creating a little bit of a dilemma between 2, I call old school turners, as in Gary Rance and Richard Raffin. Because Richard was the first person that I saw, and then Gary Rance said he did it first. And then they had that discussion about who did it in 1973 first. So we reckon Gary did it first. Okay, but I said it doesn't matter because Richard Raffin's better looking. And Gary's coming next year, isn't he? Because he couldn't come last year or something. Is he coming next year? This year. Yeah, so make sure you tell him that. So Richard Raffin's much better looking than you. Right. So what we're going to do, we're going to do a series of beads. Let's see if we can tore us up a touch. This is my marking out cut. Okay, it's not quite continuous because I have to move the tool around. Pick that out there. There you go. It's about getting into a rhythm. You see I'm concentrating now. Okay, so we're going around like that, and we're going like that, and then we're going a little bit. Okay, right, so what happened at the end? What happened at the end was I dropped the tip in. I got a bit bored with doing that last one, which I didn't need, so we can just take that down there. So now I've marked them out, now I'm going to go and refine them. So how am I doing this? Well, I'll talk through as I'm doing it. So this is cutting. Now I'm cutting the right hand side of the bead with the grain up. I'm now cutting the left hand side. As I cut the left hand side, I close the flute. I'm now cutting the left hand side again. As I come up, I cut the right hand side. I'm now cutting the left hand side. And what I'm trying to avoid is dropping the tip of the tool in. If I drop the tip of the tool in, the tool will skate on me. I lost that one there. Okay. So there. There, and I used to do this as a course. I used to do the advanced bolt turning course, and actually people were surprised that this isn't as difficult, he said, not being able to pick it up, this isn't as difficult as I'm making it look at this point. There you go. It's because as soon as I slow down, I lose concentration. So when would this have been done in anger? And why did Gary do this first? Well, this is basically what would be a trivet. This is a flat piece of wood. Years ago, you'd have a flat piece of bead, and you'd turn a series of beads on the face of it, and it would be a trivet to put your hot pan on. So those 1970s kitchens, you might still have one to be fair, would have those bits of beach on there that you would put your hot pan on. And what you've got now is pretty much, once again, a perfect finish, which you wouldn't get with a bead forming tool. Because a bead forming tool is a scrape. And if you push a scraper into there, it's going to give you a poor finish. He's going, it's not as good as Robert O'Connor. Of course not, but you can't be good at everything. Can you do it?
Never tried.
Ah, so you should try it. It's actually not that difficult. Right, so there's the outside of our bowl. We could then sand and polish this, but I'm not going to bother doing that. I'm not going to muck about doing all that sort of rubbish today. So we're just going to mark the centre. We're going to mark the centre because it will give us the ability to be able to remount it if we want to. Somebody else is obviously going to go home with this today, that they can finish it. Oh. Right, so we're taking it off the screw chuck. It won't come, see, I didn't need the tailstock, it wasn't coming off there in a hurry, was it? Actually, with the bouncing, I probably could have done with the screw, with the tailstock in there. Okay? So there's our bowl, we've got a half decent shape, we'll be able to follow that on the inside. Still going to do that one. So we're now going to mount it up on the thing, and now we're going to talk about how spindle turners hollow bowls out. Which, once again, it's now a cove, isn't it? It's as simple as a cove. So all I've got to do is do a cove. Now, I've quite often said the bowl turners have it easy, don't they? Because if this is a spindle, I've got to turn down the left-hand side and the right-hand side, haven't I? If I'm a bowl turner, I turn the left-hand side, the right-hand side appears. You only do half the work. Okay? Proper turner. I can see you all on the phone to Glenn. Les says he's a proper turner. Right, so we're mounting on there. Now remember earlier on when I showed you the Emmett Kane way of putting it on the lathe, with the thing. Now you don't do that with this. What I'm doing with this is I'm pinching it. I don't want to feel like I'm squeezing it, I want to feel like I'm pinching it. I do every hole on the chuck. Okay? Now whether you have to or not is another matter. Okay? But I do. Okay, so that's on there now, and now we're going to face off across things. So now once again, just like the outside of the bowl, we have two options. We can pull and we can push. Now those options could depend on what the wood tells us. We could try one, it doesn't work, we try the other one. It might be, well, the right-hand side sharper than the left-hand side. Okay, so if the right-hand side sharper than the left-hand side, I'll do a push. If the left-hand side sharper than the right-hand side, I might do a pull. But all I'm trying to do is refine that edge. Now, edges are important. Okay? And I'm going to do a little memorial to a great friend of mine. I lost one of my best wood turning buddies last year, a guy called Nick Agar. So you remember Nick? Nick to me, Nick was the complete turner, because not only was he was a really good technical turner, he was also a fantastic artist. Okay, so the thing about Nick is that we used to spend a lot of time together. I used to make stuff that Nick was too good to make. When he had the shop in Devon, I used to make his fruit, his bottle stoppers, his mushrooms. I used to make the stuff that paid the bills, while he made all the arty stuff. Okay, so I was in the real world and he was away with the show folk somewhere. That was very much him. But what he did with me is he taught me about rims, but not necessarily curry. There's been a massive drive, and somebody came up to me earlier on today at lunchtime and said how nice it was to see proper wood turning. I'm not throwing colour at stuff. Now there's been a little bit of a run of people putting bits of wood on the lathe and throwing some colour on the rim and digging a hole out the middle. Okay? Which is fine, but I think we're actually missing the fact we can use other stuff for the rim. We can texture the rim, but we can also put shapes on the rim to give us decoration, rather than just throwing colour on or just using a simple rim. So what I'm going to do, the most famous bowl in the world is the Viking Sunset Bowl. Okay? If you don't know what a Viking Sunset Bowl is, put it into Google. So it's the silver bowl with the red and yellow inside, and it is the most famous bowl in the world because it's the only bowl that people have ever heard of. Yeah, there's no other bowl with its own sort of name. Is there a fight going on? I tell you, they're not very big, but they look quick. So we'll shut up, okay? We'll shut up, okay? Keep quiet, they'll go away. Right. So basically, I'm going to put that rim on there, but not do the texturing, just to see if it works. So it's a good experimental thing for me. This is a concept bowl. This isn't necessarily what I would put on a bowl, but it will just see whether we can get away with doing this sort of shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean that up there. And just like proper spindle turning, I'm going to turn 2 small beads, so a little, let me get the tool rest up there, lock that over there. I'm going to turn a little tiny bead here, and you notice I'm using spindle gouge, and I'm going to turn a little bead here, there. So here's a little bead, there, and then there's a little bead on the edge there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bigger bead in the centre. Now, in my world, this big bead becomes a tyre. Because it's on the face, it now becomes a tyre. Okay? Now, who manufactures more tyres than anybody else in the world? Lego. Well done, you know already. God, you're so clever. Lego make more tyres than any other company. How interesting is that, eh? Right. So you see, I'm closing the flute to get into that little detail. What sets us aside is those little punctuation points there. And then that little punctuation point there. Okay, so there's our shape on our rim. Okay, I just need to get rid of that little bit there. Bevel, work. Okay, now, what am I avoiding when I'm doing this? What's the worst thing I can do? The worst thing I can do is stick the tip in. I'm sticking the tip away from the wood. If I stick the tip in, the tool will skate on me. So that's my concentration. I'm staying on the bevel as I go round, and I'm working round into that little shoulder there. And it's giving me, once again, that clean surface. There's a little bit of fluff around there, but other than that, I'm happy with that. So what I could do now, I could pick up the Sorby texturing tool, the Simon Hope one. I could just texture in there if I wanted to. I could do the leather stamps like Nick would have done. But it gives something to that rim. Something that little bit extra. So when I'm judging a competition, there's 2 bowls the same, one's got that, one hasn't. Well, this one wins, doesn't it? Because it's that little bit of extra work in it, that little bit of cleverness. So we've done all that. I'm going to check the chuck, and I'm going to check the chuck again because being wood with some moisture in it, it's going to have a little bit of a. It could adjust slightly. It could shrink as we're working, and now we're going to hollow a bowl out. So hollowing a bowl. The thing that a lot of people have problems with. Now to me it's a cove. So if it's a cove, what have I got to be careful of? Well, I know that once I'm inside the wood I should be fine. But I know coming from fresh air is going to be my problem. So that's what I'm concentrating on. I'm concentrating on getting this tool into there. I'm going to start with a 1/4 inch gouge because I'm working close to the tool rest. So I'm going to start with there and I'm going to work on the basis I'm going to stick the tool in. Okay, and I'm going to stick the tool in, and the tool will do this. Whoops. Okay? Now, what's interesting when you're teaching beginners, and I know some of you do some teaching here, isn't it interesting that people do this, and their next action is to do exactly the same thing? Do you know that? Because it's like, I've done that and it didn't work, so I'll try exactly the same thing because it might work this time. Okay? Now normally what happens is, if it doesn't work the first time, it very rarely works the second time. Because you're presenting the tool badly. Okay? Now, for the blokes in the audience, not the girls of course, we solved this by brute force. Isn't it? I always think that caveman, the cavemen went out and killed the woolly mammoth, kept eating it raw, dying of food poisoning. The women come along and said, should we cook it first? Because the men like the killing bit, but not necessarily the sensible bit. And it's the same thing with this. It's like, I'm going to cure this with brute force. So what we do is we push harder, don't we? Because we can solve everything by brute force. So we go, right, first thing we go, oh, it doesn't work. Oh, and you push harder and it still doesn't work. Because the tool's in the wrong place. It's being presented badly, it's going to escape. So we need to be clever. So we need to work out different ways of doing this. And this partly might be because of what shape you're turning. Whether you're doing a natural edge, whether you're doing a coloured edge, whether you're doing a shallow bowl, whether you're doing a steep bowl, or whether you're doing an undercut bowl like we're going to do on this piece. Okay? So first things first, we need to stop this tool skating. And a lot of you will have your own little ways. Okay? Some of you might use a parting tool. Okay? It's not cheating. It's not cheating, but all I would say is, you make a parting tool cut in there, we now got the bevel in contact, we can now make a cut. It's not cheating, but it's a bit of a faff. Plus, a natural edge, it won't work. If you've got an uneven edge and you push a parting tool in, it's going to jump on you. Okay? So it's not the end of the journey for you, but if you're really struggling, it's part of the journey. Okay? The other way we can do it, we could use this tool to make a groove. Okay? So we can turn the tool over and make a groove, and then turn the tool right around and do that. And that's a very, very effective way of doing it. Okay? But once again, you're making a cut, having to turn the tool over, then make another one. I don't do that on a cove. All I do with a cove is I fix the tool in position where I want it to be, I make an incision, and I follow it. It's that simple. So all we've got to do, fix the tool in position there, make an incision, follow it. Okay? So what I'm using is this part of my hand. This strong part of my hand here, locking that on the tool rest, I've got a great point of contact, I make an incision and you go like that. And that makes it look easy. You think, well, why can't I do that? Why do I have trouble with that while I'm doing that? Well, what you're doing is you're fixing the tool and then you're pushing. And if you push, the tool still wants to escape. What I want you to do next time you're entering a bowl is I want you to hold the tool there and advance it until it makes a slot. And if you feel like you're advancing it and not pushing it, that will help you. And remember what I said at the beginning of the day, that little nugget of information, that is what the guy said to me when I was first doing cones and stuff like that, and if the tool was skating, he said, don't push the tool to make it cut, advance it. And that stops that jumping into it. So, now the other way of doing it would be to come with the bevel at right angles to work. So let's get our bevel angle indicator. Someone's nicked the pencil, haven't they? Okay, talk about magnetic pencils, it sticks to it. My magnetic pencil was really funny. I did a demonstration in America once, and during the tea break, all they kept talking about was the magnetic pencil. So, Americans don't do sarcasm? Any Americans here? You're American? But it was quite interesting. So I stood up at the start of the second break, I see you all interested in this pencil. They said, yeah, well, so next time you don't need to invite me, I'll just send you a box of pencils and magnets. They went, didn't get that at all. Okay. Right. So here we go. So we're on the bevel angle, we're not on the food position. So here's my bevel angle. Here's this lovely, if I can get it to say right. So here's this lovely sort of 35 degree. Okay? If I start the cut there, I need to advance it. If I start the cut here, I can actually go straight in. Okay, there. Apart from if you bring the tip in too quickly. I'm using the lower end. If I lift the handle like I did just then and bring a tip in, the tool will stay. Okay, right, so I'm going to bulk out a little bit of that middle bit now, and then we're going to talk about undercuts. Wow. Right, so I've just bolted away some of the material here just so I can get to the next stage. I love bolt turning, it's such good fun. Right, so then we started to bulk away some of that wood there. Now we're going to talk about this bit in the middle. You see that I've made the Inca temple. I use the step method. Okay, and the reason I call it a step method because somebody had to call it a name once. Okay, so I use a step method for doing it. So I take the bowl away and then I work this way round. Now this is one of the things that you've got to get into your head as a beginner. This is not a pull cut. I do not do a pull cut inside a bowl. Okay, if you do a pull cut inside a bowl, that's absolutely fine. And if you enjoy it, that's absolutely fine. But you saw what happened when I lifted the tool off the tool rest too far. The pull cut inside a bowl is asking for trouble. Now, there may be a chance or maybe a piece of wood in the future or a shape in the future where I have to do that. But it won't be nice and I won't enjoy it. Okay? I'd much rather do a push cut. So this cut here is a push cut. Even though my flute's pointing towards me, I'm still behind the cutting edge. You see how the bevel's in contact? And this is a really good way of removing that slow wood in the centre. Because instead of going from a fast speed to a slow speed, I'm going from a slower speed to ripple speed to a fast speed. Okay? So I can use those. What's the other advantage? Come on, interaction. I'm using both sides of the tool. Okay? As a production turner, the last thing I want to do is sharpen a tool where half of it's still sharp. Okay? That's just a complete waste of time and money. And none of you got into wood turning because you like sharpening. Sharpening is a necessary evil for you to be able to do your job stroke hobby. Okay? So, but to be able to go back to the grinder when the whole tool's blunt is a massive advantage rather than keep grinding away that lovely sharp edge because you've only done a push cut. You've only done the cut from that way rather than that one in there. Right, so let's talk about undercuts. Undercuts in bowls. Now all my normal bowls have an undercut. Okay? My thin bowls don't because that would be, you can't have a 2mm bowl with an undercut because that'd be silly. But all my normal bowls, my decorative stroke salad bowls have an undercut. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, about why on a salad bowl. But generally I like it, it creates that little bit of air of mystery. I might like this one. This one's got a bead system that's come over, and then there's the undercut there. This one's going to have a more of a traditional type undercut. So the great thing about an undercut, from my point of view, with a student, would be that to do an undercut with a gouge, it means you've got it. It means you've picked the tool up, and you've reached that point where you understand how a tool works. Because you can't do that undercut without knowing how to get that bevel in contact. Now you could go in there with a scraper. Who did the Purple Heart Bowl that was in the competition? Who did the Purple Heart Bowl? Own up. You over there. Now the reason that won is that's a really horrible piece of wood. I wouldn't turn Purple Heart. And you made a really good job of that. You got under that ring with a scraper, with a gouge. Fair play to you. Because it was a really good finish. So I looked at that and thought, that's a really difficult cut to do, and you've done it really well. So well done. It's a really horrible piece of wood. No, sorry, horrible piece of wood to turn. It's a very nice piece of wood. Okay, so if you want that. So it's the same thing here. First things first, I wouldn't pick purple art. I'd pick a bit more forgiving wood to do an undercut on. Okay? I bet halfway through you thought you wished you'd picked a bit of an easier piece of wood than that. Yeah. Because I look at a job like that and I think if somebody ordered 50 of those, what would I price that and how difficult they would be? I would give them to somebody else to do. That's what I would do. So, we're going to work about a fundamental of turning. How to learn how to do an undercut. The tool will cut in the direction of its bevel. A lot of blank faces there. That's my bevel direction. That's my bevel angle. Okay? If I hold the tool there and I push the tool straight in, the tool will cut at that angle. It makes a V, doesn't it? Or half a V at the angle. If I put the tool in here and I push, I make a 90-degree angle on that top. So let's do that. So I'll hold the tool, my bevel is at 90 degrees to the work. Okay, I'm pushing there. Normally I'll be using a better grip than this, but I'm just to show you. I now have a 90-degree angle there. Okay, it's a fundamental of turning. The tool will cut in the direction of its bevel. So now what I want to do is I want to go underneath. So to go underneath, what I need to do is I need to go beyond there. I need to go over there. This screen's going to be a right. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it actually. I can get around this. Okay? So I need to go. So I need now my bevel pointing at that green get out the door sign. Okay. So I need to push that up under that rim. Now the problem about that is, if I keep pushing, I end up making an uncaptive ring, don't I? You don't actually, but it's always nice to think you could do that. You just come to a standstill. So as I push in there to create that curve, I then need to drop the handle, open the flute, bring my body round. Okay? All at exactly the right ratio to get that curve under there. Okay? So let's try that. So I'm going to go on a 1/4 inch gouge. Maybe it's got a short handle. Yep, I can. It's a bit awkward if you've got a wall behind your lathe and long tall handles. So we're going to go there. Now it's very difficult to start the cut round there. So actually I've made a ridge there. I'm actually going to start with the bevel on the wood, then throw my hand away and work round. Okay, right, so bevel on the wood there, throw my hand away there. Okay, I'm now pushing towards that sign. You can see I'm making a cut. As I come around there, I'm dropping the handle. I'll explain why I do that in a minute. And then I'm bringing the handle back round as a curve. And I've just now created that little tiny hook under there. Okay? So, why am I dropping the handle as I go around? It's funny, you're looking at that TV, I keep thinking you're looking at that sign up there. I thought you could stop looking at that sign now. Why am I dropping my handle? Right, so this is the one. Let me do it up in the air. Wow. I'm going to do it up here. Right, so this tool is horizontal. This bevel is not on contact with my hand, is it? Okay, everybody got that? How do I get this bevel in contact with my hand? Lower the handle. Perfect. I'm in there, I'm off the bevel, I lower the handle, I'm on the bevel. It's quite straightforward. Right. If I can't lower the handle, because what happens if I'm in the middle? If I lower the handle, I'm going to come off the bevel because I'm going to miss the wood, aren't I? So, if I can't lower the handle, how else do I get this bevel in contact? Go on, somebody. Move it. Twist. See, twist is right. If you twist, I'm going to drill a hole, aren't I? What's it?
Open the flute.
It is open. It's at 12 o'clock. You can't get more open than that. What am I going to do? I'll put it here. What am I going to do? No, I'm not allowed to drop my hands. Put it back to myself. So this now puts the bevel in contact, doesn't it? You got it? So I'm in there. Right, so let's can you see all right in there? Is it? Yeah, okay. Right, so let's go in there. Right, if I'm horizontal, I'm here and the bevel is in contact, you see? Because I brought the tool to myself. Now if I'm doing a part of the bowl here, I can't bring the handle to myself because the rim's in the way. So to get the bevel to rub there, I need to drop my hand. So I go in there and the tool starts to jump. So here we go, ready? It's jumping. Well, jumping there. There. Can you hear that? Just going tick, 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 tick. You might, let's see. Let's make it a bit flatter in the bottom there. Show on the thing. Show on the thing. So, bevel in contact. Okay? Bevel in contact. Bevel not in contact, you see? Tool's jumping. Bevel's not in contact. Bevel in contact. Bevel's not in contact. Bevel's in contact. See, bevel's in contact. Bevel's in contact. Bevel's not in contact. So that's it, and that's what you're trying to do throughout that sweep. So in effect, if you were doing a flow around a bowl, you would go in there, you drop around here. As you come around this transition point here, you drop the handle, because that keeps the bevel in contact. As you go towards the centre, you can't keep the handle low because you're going to miss. You need to lift the handle up, but as you lift the handle up, you are then going to bring your handle to yourself to keep that bevel in contact. So it's that movement. So this is that movement that you are trying to achieve. And that's exactly the same movement that I do in a cove. Okay? It's the same movement if you do in a cove, that cut there, as you open the flute, you come round, you bring your handle round like that, and as you come round the centre, you open the flute and drop the handle. Okay? There you go. It's that simple. Okay? So that's what we do. So I want you now to watch what I'm doing to this handle as I go around. There. I'm throwing the handle away. I'm round under that shoulder. I'm round now. There. And back on the bevel. That point there. And that's great. So that hook in there again. Another one. There. Handle down on that bevel. Round. Into there. And if you want to, you can come round now. A little bit of a bevel knock on that. That's interesting. I couldn't quite get on the bevel on that cut there. So now I've got a sort of quite a significant undercut. If I want to, I can go in here. Okay, and I can try and get that next stage, which means now I'm going to be right over there, there. Oh, tool rest moved. Okay. I just pop that off, that bead off. Let me just make sure that nothing terminal there. Almost. You're happy now, isn't he? Oh, that was almost a mistake. I'm getting closer. Okay, so I'm just going to clean that bead up there. Luckily I'll sort of make it slightly oversized anyway. And now when I go back into this bit here. So here we go. So I'm afraid you might not be able to see what I'm doing. Around there. Into there. So to lead on from this young man's question here, why wouldn't I use a scraper under there? Well, so if you've used a scraper under there, it's not going to give you a good enough finish. It's not going to give you the finish that the gouge will give you on the way around. But you can see now how it's created that air of mystery. I'm not going to try and get too arty, I just like it. And the reason I like it is because it means that I'm turning it properly. Now, I wouldn't do that on a cove. Okay? There is a little bit of a precedent for that on some Victorian yawl posts, which on their bottle shape they do undercut. It's horrible. I actually hate on that because I hate having to do it. It's a really, really difficult cut to get under there. It was a bit, I always thought it was a bit like the master wood turner would do it because the apprentice couldn't. Okay? So it's one of those ones where the guy was just showing off and creating this thing that he's made it awkward for us afterwards. So, we're now going to take away some of this here and we can have a little bit of a talk about transition points. So as we talked about earlier on, you can see now how I'm coming off the bevel. Okay, you can hear the tool jumping slightly. If I had a 55-degree bevel on there or a shorter bevel, I wouldn't be getting that. But what I'm getting then is I'm not getting such a good cut. I don't think. I'm not getting that sliceability through the fibres. So I actually try and persevere with the longer bevel as long as possible before I change to a tool with a different nose angle on it. So when I'm turning a lot of bowls in anger, I would use 4 or 5 different bowl gouges, all ground differently. I'd use the 40 degree or 35 degree for most of the work, then I'd go to the 45, then I'd go to the 50, then I'd go to the 60 to be able to keep that bevel in contact while I'm in the bottom. Okay? Right. So about an undercut is all the shavings keep sticking in there. So we're going to go in there now and we're now going to start refining that surface in there. Okay, so it's a touch low there. So here's our curve, and now we're talking about transition points. So we're trying to match that curve down there because you know when you bring that bowl along to your wood turning club, you're going to come along to Dublin chapter and you're going to put your bowl in there, and the first thing that all your mates do, everybody does, is they pick it up and they go, ooh, don't they? Actually, the first thing they do is look at the bottom and see what chuck you've got. Then they turn and they go, ooh, and they get a bit of a stroke. It's called the wood turner's grope. So what you have to do is you have to make sure that that curve is perfect. Because what you don't want to do, your mate to do is go, ooh. Okay? Because that means there's a bit of a bump in there. Okay. Now, if you're going to leave a bump in there, you have to have a good excuse. Simple enough. So if I leave a bump in the bottom, does that make me a bad craftsman? Yes. If I put a bump in there on purpose, that makes me an artist. See, so you've seen the difference now. So what I'm going to do by putting a bump in the bottom of this bowl in a minute, is I'm going to decrease its saleability, but increase its value. And that's really important when you get into wood turning and stuff like that. I was talking to the guys last night about hollow forms. About nice bits of wood. So I've got some fantastic wood. I don't turn hollow forms much nowadays because I can't get the money for them. Okay? So if I've got a nice piece of, I don't know, let's go completely top end. Let's go Cocobolo. I mean, I've got some Cocobolo logs. I could make that into a pot. Okay? That I could sell for $2,000. But it might take me 10 years to sell it. I can make that into 3 bowls and sell them for 250 quid each tomorrow. Okay? Because I'm increasing my market. I'm increasing my market, but not increasing my price in that basis. As soon as you go artistic, suddenly it becomes more expensive. Right. When I was talking to Emmett about this, he said, oh, your prices are too cheap, Les. And I said, well, I make it quickly. My prices are competitive. And to be fair, I sold a lot, so maybe, that was a... I remember being at the AEW seminar in America, and the first time you go, they think, blimey, their prices are amazing. God, they want $10,000 for that pot. I think, what you're going to ask them is how many they sell. Okay, that's the difference. No matter what the price is, how many do they sell? Not many, I think. Pardon? It is if you still got it, if you've got it. No, you can't get it in the UK, but I've got some. Do you need some? It's expensive. It's going up as we talk. It's killing expensive now. No, you can't. It's sizes. You're not allowed to import it. You know. No, you're not allowed to. In the UK, you're not allowed to import it. They get round it. There's all sorts of ways. Like you quite often see boards. Sonokelling, Asian rosewood's a good one. Yeah. Well, no, it's pretty. So by making it endangered, it makes it more expensive.
I bought it. I remember buying a piece to make a goblet, €20. That's about 10, 15
You can't get it, no. The thing about the Copacabana is, it's quite funny that, why are all the pretty woods really expensive and difficult to get hold of? It's a very good piece of marketing. Okay, but basically, yeah, the Copacabana, I've got some, it's an amazing log, but I've had it for 25, 30 years, so I've got some snakewood logs, and it's all my, I always think, I'm going to turn something out of them one day. I won't. They'll be handed down to my kids. Or probably throw them on fire. They'll go, this wood's crap, Dad, it doesn't burn. Right, so we're going to go in there now, we're going to do these transitions. We're going to talk, so I know how to keep this bevel in contact. As I come around the corner, I'm going to drop my hand as I come round, and that keeps the bevel's not in contact there, it's in contact there, and I'm flowing round. Now this one, oh there you go, I'm just off the bevel there, you see that? There. I'm just on the limit of being able to do that area there with that cut. So as soon as that tool starts to jump, you're off the bevel. And that's when you need to get on the bevel. At that point, I couldn't drop my hand down, and I couldn't bring the tool any further this way because the rims are the way. So this is the time to get this 40 degree over here and turn to a steeper angle bolt gouge. So now I will go from 60. That way, so we'll go to 50 back in the workshop. I didn't want to carry on with gouges over it. Okay, so we'll go to a 60 degree bowl gouge. Now a 60 degree bowl gouge is quite interesting. It's basically about as blunt as you can make a tool. So what's the advantage of that? Well, now I'm getting away from that word. I'm getting away from that sliceability. I'm now anti-sliceability. But by doing that, what I'm doing is I'm making the tool cut less well. And if the tool cuts less well, it makes it easier to use. Because it won't dig in as much. It can't take a big slice through the wood because the bevel won't allow it. So if I get this tool in the wrong place, it tends not to dig in. It just won't cut. So this tool over there, there's my bevel. Look at the gap here. To get this bevel in contact here, in that centre of that bowl, I have 1.25 inches gap there. Okay? If I try and go in there with the longer bevel tool, and get that bevel in there, I can just get there. I've got a 1/4 inch gap. Sorry, you're metric, aren't you? 33 mil, 6 mil. But that's the difference. There. So I can just about get in there with this tool. But if it was any deeper, I'd need to go to this one. Oh, sun's come out again. So why don't I hollow the whole bowl with this tool? I want you to get the demo. Why don't I hollow the bowl with this tool?
Different bevel and sliceability.
Sliceability. It would take much longer. It would be much safer. So if I have a nightmare student, and I've had a few nightmare students in my time, I'm trying not to focus on anybody. I think actually, who's been on the course with me apart from Colin? He said to me, I came on a course didn't you? He said, I came on a course. I said, the lucky thing for you is I don't remember. He said, what do you remember? I said, I only remember the bad ones. See, that's how you get out of not remembering somebody's name. But basically, I shorten their bevel, because if I shorten their bevel, their diggings become less dramatic. Simple as that. Okay? So don't feel obliged to put that long nose angle on your bowl gouge, because if you can't control it, keep that bow, and that's why that 55-degree bowl gouge, 50-degree bowl gouge works. Because it's that crossover between safety and sliceability. Okay? So that's my disclaimer on that, because you'll all go home, grind your bowl gouge to 40 degrees and kill yourself. So what's if you kill yourself, don't phone me up and tell me off. Okay, so we've got that there. I'm just going to come down there and take that area there. I'm got that light on, it's just giving me a... So I'm going to flow around there, there. Okay, just a little bit of a jump off the end. I was on the bevel, but it was just too big a cut. I've got that nice curve in there. Of course, it's not sanding, and you will feel it and you'll go, yes, that's rough. Okay, the end grain's rough. Of course, end grain's rough. It's full of holes. Okay, but what I want you to look in, I want you to look and see if there's any torn out grain, and there isn't. So that roughness pops out with a bit of 180 grit straight away. We're now going to put this bit in the bottom. We're now going to make this little decorative thing, and this is because Nick Agar's Viking Sunset Bowl has a lump in the bottom, okay? And I invented that lump. That's my claim to fame. He may have had the most famous bowl in the world, but I was the first person to put that lump in it. He just decorated it and took it to another level, okay? But I tell people I invented that lump, which is true. We used to spend quite a lot of time together, and it was actually funny, because I'm sure we're like an old married couple. We used to moan, and we were both people that suffered with being hangry. So if we hadn't had breakfast, I mean, I can remember a car journey to him, go to a cafe for breakfast one, where in 10 miles, we probably killed each other 10 times. We were moaning at each other's throats because we were grumpy. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn a lump in the bottom of this bowl. And I'm going to keep that bevel in contact, he said. Couldn't quite get there with the screen there. Okay, so it's there. Well, that's quite warm now. So we go there with a 60 degree and just work that area off there. Okay. And I will carry that go. So I've just gone to the other bowl gouge to get on the bevel, and now I'm just going to go on that one. And I'm working with the grain again. I'm going to flow that in there. And bring that into a punctuation point. And if we're lucky, okay, it doesn't quite work that well, this one. Quite often, depending on where the woods come from the tree, this grain will go in a different direction. You'll get that convex against concave different. The grain will look like it's coming at you rather than away from you. You've got a little bit of a discrepancy there because you've got that sort of weird bit in the bottom there. But that's quite an interesting effect. And why don't we put lumps in the bottom of our bowls? It's quite nice. I think it's quite a nice feature. You won't do it because you'll be afraid about bringing it in here and the wood's going to go, ooh. Okay? But you do. It's quite interesting, this idea, and I see it everywhere, and I see this decorated, you know, so the recess decorated with the sort of or the Simon Hope texturing tool on the bottom where nobody can see it. Why don't you texture that bit in there? Okay? At least you can see it. And it actually doesn't detract from it being a bowl, does it? Now, if you're looking for the ultimate excuse for the lump in the bottom of the bowl, you can say, well, it's a fruit bowl, and it stops all the fruit bowling together in the middle, doesn't it? So let's talk about an undercut. I used to do craft fairs. Years ago, I used to make stock and do craft fairs. And I used to do these craft fairs, and you know, one of the things is, how can you get 200 quid for a salad bowl when you can buy one from the local shop for 35? Right? Marketing. Okay? You need to say, you know, you need to tell that customer why that salad bowl, your salad bowl costs this, and that salad bowl costs that. So, straight away, nicer bits of wood. If you're going to make white beet salad bowls, don't bother. I had a guy that said, I can't get a lot of money for my pepper mills, and when I looked at them, they looked like those cheap 15 quid pepper mills. Use a nice piece of wood for a start, because that's your selling point. Put some colour on it, that's your selling point. My selling point was the undercut. Okay? Imagine that scenario, you're around your friend's house or something like that, and they've got a normal salad bowl with a rim coming up straight like that, and there's one cherry tomato left in the bowl. You pick your spoon up like this, you try to get that cherry tomato, and it flies over your shoulder, doesn't it? Salad undercut, my cherry tomato and this one rolls perfectly onto the spoon. Right, so I would do this little presentation to a customers, okay? One of two things would happen. They'd either punch me, or they'd buy the bowl. Now the moral of that story is, I don't do craft fairs anymore, so make up your own mind with that one. But it is that selling point. Do you see what I mean? If this was a nice piece of olive ash, lovely piece of olive ash, about 6 deep. Make it 4 or 5 inches deep. Most of the salad bowls you buy commercially are 3 inches deep. Make it that little bit deeper. Put the undercut on. Okay? Give a little, get some plastic bottles, put a little bit of food safe finish in it, which costs 50p. You get a free bottle of oil to keep it look after it. Put it in a box. A box off eBay, a cardboard box, will cost you, for a big salad bowl like that, a nice decorative box will cost you 3 quid. It adds 50 quid to the price. Put it in some straw. Do you see what I mean? It's all these things. Because you have to justify why that's expensive. And that's how you make money from wood turning. If you just pile a load of brown stuff on your stand and sit there grumpy like this, you're never going to sell anything. Okay, I used to share a stand with a guy who was a brilliant wood turner, but he used to scare children. He was like the child catcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. If a kid came along and picked up a bowl, we'd go, put it down. Okay, I'd be looking at what their parents are like first. If their parents have got money, the kid can do what he likes with that bowl, because one, if they break it, they're going to pay for it. Two, you want to encourage them. He was terrible, absolutely. The only thing about that is he's 97 now, still alive. So I think there's a thing in that. If you're grumpy enough, I think you live a long time. I think he's afraid to die because he hasn't upset everybody yet. But he's Brian Mitchell, his name. He's a very, very good wood turner, but very grumpy. So that's my concept bowl. Okay, so that's a concept bowl, undercut, beads on the outside, decorative rim. Anti-wood turning lump on the bottom. It's going to go massively oval, but it shouldn't crack. So I'm going to hang that around there. Watch out for splinters. Right. Half an hour.